To be misconstrued, the biggest accident that people make is thinking that Hammer actually went broke. Hip hop had polarized him being the fall off. All he did was what most of these corporations do, and they filed the Chapter 13 or Chapter 11 bankruptcies. And since we know nothing about financial literacy in our communities, we had no idea. We just thought you was broke. Oh, you went bankrupt. I've never seen Hammer
blew a bunch of money. Why? Because he was trying to support everybody, but he didn't have policies and procedures in place to determine, okay, who's going to be on payroll? What's their job title? What task are they actually going to perform? He was just kind of bringing everybody on with him. He made $40 million in a year, and then he ended up going bankrupt afterwards. And this was in the 90s. Due to inflation, that would be like making $80 million today and freaking blowing it.
Remember MC Hammer? You can't touch this. He was bankrupt 4 years later. Here's what happened. 1990, You Can't Touch This drops. Hammer becomes the biggest musician on the planet overnight. $30 million hits his bank account. And instead of building wealth, he built a lifestyle so expensive it needed its own zip code. 200 employees on payroll. $30 million mansion with a gold-plated gate, 19 cars, a personal horse racing stable that burned $500,000 a year. Here's the number one thing that'll blow your mind away. His monthly expenses hit $500,000 every month. That is lifestyle addiction, and it destroys more wealth than any stock market crash ever could.
Hammer said after he filed for bankruptcy, his biggest business mistake was trying to carry too many people to the top.
Wow.
Who were committed to the bottom.
Wow.
Having a pure heart, how difficult is it to say no? We've got so many athletes who go broke, so many entertainers who go broke, not because of spending habits, but because of the curse of compassion. How do you get to a point where you're able to say no and still love them?
MC Hammer's financial story is one of the most talked about rise and fall stories in hip-hop history, but it's also one of the best examples of how success alone doesn't guarantee long-term wealth. At the height of his career in the early 1990s, Hammer wasn't just one of the biggest rappers in the Bay Area. He was one of the biggest entertainers in the world. Albums like Please Hammer, Don't Hurt 'Em sold millions of copies. Songs like You Can't Touch This became global hits, and Hammer earned enormous amounts of money through music, touring, endorsements, and merchandise. For a period of time, he was widely regarded as one of the wealthiest figures in Bay Area hip-hop. His success showed artists from Northern California that it was possible to compete on a worldwide stage without coming from New York or Los Angeles. But as quickly as money came in, it also went out. One of the biggest factors people point to was Hammer's loyalty to those around him. Rather than traveling with a small crew, he reportedly employed a very large entourage that included friends, family members, security, assistants, dancers, and support staff. Keeping that many people on payroll created massive monthly expenses. Loyalty is an admirable quality, but every business has to be sustainable. If payroll continues while income slows down, financial pressure builds quickly. Another major factor was lifestyle. Hammer purchased an enormous custom-built estate, luxury vehicles, and other expensive assets. Those purchases weren't necessarily the problem by themselves. The issue was maintaining them once the pace of income began to change. Entertainment income often comes in waves. A superstar may earn millions during one period and much less a few years later. If spending doesn't adjust when income changes, the financial gap can become difficult to overcome. The music industry itself also changes quickly. Popularity rises and falls. New artists emerge. Touring opportunities fluctuate. Record sales slow down. Smart financial planning means preparing for those changes before they happen, not after. Eventually, Hammer filed for bankruptcy in the mid-1990s. While bankruptcy is often viewed as the end of the story, it wasn't the end of his life or his career. He continued working in entertainment, technology, ministry, business ventures, and public speaking. His story became less about failure and more about resilience, showing that a financial setback doesn't have to define a person's future. There are several lessons that today's artists, influencers, athletes, and entrepreneurs can take from Hammer's experience. First, loyalty should never come at the expense of financial stability. Helping people is honorable, but creating jobs requires a sustainable business model. Sometimes the best way to help others is by ensuring your own financial foundation remains strong. Second, separate income from wealth. Earning millions doesn't automatically make someone wealthy if expenses are equally large. Building wealth means saving, investing, diversifying income, and preparing for seasons when business slows down. Third, avoid trying to impress people with material possessions. Large homes, expensive cars, and lavish lifestyles can create enormous ongoing costs that continue long after the headlines fade. Finally, remember that success isn't measured only by how much money someone earns, but by how well they manage it over time. MC Hammer's legacy isn't just about hit records or bankruptcy. It's also about perseverance. He reinvented himself after experiencing one of the most public financial collapses in entertainment history, proving that setbacks don't have to be permanent if you're willing to adapt, learn, and keep moving forward. Hammer's story remains one of hip-hop's greatest financial case studies. Extraordinary success, costly mistakes, and the reminder that protecting wealth can be just as important as creating it.